Hello, welcome to Conversations from Backstage. I'm Chad McDonald, Cultural Arts Superintendent for the City of Cookeville. During this time of social distancing, we are limited in what we can offer the public in the way of performances and events. We came up with this project to provide some online content and entertainment for you to enjoy at home. We want you to know that we are working toward the time when we can enjoy performances and events again without the fear or concern about being in close proximity to each other. I'm confident that we will be able to gather again, and hopefully, this project will give you greater insight to the showmaking process and make for a fuller experience when you do return. Specifically, we want to give you a glimpse of what it's like to be on stage as a performer, backstage as a stagehand, and what it takes to produce a performance from beginning to end. And we want you to learn a little bit about the people who make that happen. Special thanks goes to our cultural arts technician, Matt Wilson, who's been busy working on this project. He will also serve as host for tonight's episode. We hope you enjoy what you see and look forward to providing this content on a regular basis. We have several episodes in the works, so join us each Thursday evening at 7 p.m. to check out the latest one. Enjoy tonight's episode.
Hello, I'm Matthew Wilson, the Cultural Arts Technician here at CPAC, and welcome to Conversations from Backstage. Tonight's show is with Steve Gwilt, the Cultural Arts Coordinator here at CPAC. He was here has been here for the entirety of our Backstage series. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about the growth and change of that series itself. So let's go ahead and get to it. Hey, Steve, how's it going, man?
Hey, going well, Matt. Thanks for heading this up and getting all this done. It's a great idea to let people know how this works.
Yeah, great. So, as I said in your introduction, you've been around for the entirety of the Backstage series. You've directed 22 shows and been in several more, and also, our Shakespeare shows and things like that. So you've been around for quite a bit of it. What, you know, how how has it been to see the Backstage series start and grow, and how is that how have you seen that happen?
Well, like any entity that one witnesses from its inception to its execution, it's been quite a remarkable thing. The first Backstage shows we did were in 1993. That was last century for anybody that is numerologist. But yeah, so 93 is when we did Graceland and Asleep in the Wind, two one-act plays meant to be performed in the same evening of theater. Back then, we used minimal set, which of course we still do for many of the productions that we do. It allows one to use their imagination more than having everything placed there for it. But we had a minimal set because we just didn't have much of a crew. And so that's part of the reason we had a minimal set was the crew thing and the time and the budget, and we just didn't have a lot of accoutrement to be able to put on a show. We had enough to be able to put on these shows, but basically we hauled in some chairs and put up a couple of platforms, and the play Graceland called for ladies that are camping outside of Graceland when it is about to open to the public. Yeah. Well, the set piece for that was my own tent that I brought in.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
We had a tent and some pillows and that sort of thing, and a lawn chair or two. But that was the set. Then for Sleep on the Wind, the second piece in that same evening of theater, we just found a couple of long columns that would go in the front of a building because it was supposed to be around the ruins of this place. So we used those columns, tipped them over, and everything worked fine. But since then, it has been quite enjoyable to watch what has happened with the Backstage series, because from that first production to some of the last productions we've done, there has been quite increase in the settings and the technical aspects that have gone in. for some of the people that might be interested, we have done backstage shows with sets that included a full-on cabin, a
Yeah.
porch with real stone piers that were built. We have had several different cars, automobiles on
Yeah.
stage, which actually rolled around. We had a 4,000-gallon lake
Mm-hmm.
that we built on stage, complete with a boat that you could get in and float around
Yeah.
in the lake. Which, by the way, a friend of mine who's a hydraulic engineer, we posed that question to him after the show was done. We said, "What would you think about building a 4,000-gallon lake on our stage?" He said, "No, don't do it." Well, it was too late. Already had been done.
Yeah.
But those are part of the things that have really been fun to watch. And
Yeah.
you've been involved with a production or two where we actually had the turntable set, the
Yeah.
revolve set, and so on. So when you get to the point where you can bring in things like that and incorporate those into a production in the space that we utilize for backstage, because again, for people that don't know, the whole backstage series takes place on the main stage.
Mhm.
We set up a variable staging and seating area, so it changes with every production that
Yeah.
we do. Of
Yeah.
course, that cuts down on the number of people that we can have watching it, but I think that in that, we were able to accomplish a task that I think was waiting to happen, and that was to offer to patrons and theater goers a different kind of theater that we really weren't doing in this area.
Yeah.
This area has been really rich in theater for a long, long time, and I'll bring up Marge Hargrove's name just to throw that in there, because she was very instrumental in bringing theater to this
Yeah.
area, and to help it out, to help it grow to the state that it is right now. And she took a lot of challenges and helped us out a lot. But part of that is watching the theater grow, and I think that's what she would also be very happy to see, is how the theater has grown, how we offered this different venue and different, it's not necessarily a genre of theater, but a different venue
Yeah.
of theater
A different way of doing
people
it.
to observe. And we
Yeah.
do primarily contemporary, oftentimes some edgy shows for the community. We try to provide thoughtful plays, both entertaining and often plays that make you go home and think a little bit about what you just saw.
Yeah, to go back to a point that you made about how it's on stage and we do different settings and things like that on that. I went back through the list of the shows that you've directed and looked at some pictures and things of that nature, and I noticed that you tend to do like, I've done one in alley style and then another one that was like just straight on, and that's pretty much all I've done. But you have done ones in alley style, in the round. You've done it at, a diagonal on the stage, facing back out towards the audience. Noises off, which is probably the uh, uh, best example of like an odd setting where we did it, where you could sit out on the main stage and then our whole audience traveled back and sat backstage for it. So you've chosen, more so than any other director that I can see, although you have done more anyway, but chosen odder and made like bolder choices on how you set up for staging of your shows. Is there any certain reason that you do that, or is it just the sheer number that you've done? Or
I think there's not really a reason necessarily. I think it's just an inherent desire to do things differently and to provide some different things, challenges for both the director and the actors to act in a different space, in a different setting, in which it's not the traditional proscenium audience type setting. And
yeah,
I think that audiences enjoy that a lot too. I try to keep audience in the back of my mind with every production that we do from beginning to end. That's kind of my focus, is audience. How is this going to play to an audience? And so I think that's part of the reasoning, is when you go into a play, without even really thinking about it, you just start to say, okay, what can we do here that's a little bit different?
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of the idea behind Backstage too, is just to offer a variety
Yeah.
of things. And I do like the challenge for both myself as a director and for the actors to be able to
Yeah.
adapt to a new setting like that. So I think that's part of the fun. And when you get right down to it, when you're talking about challenges in theater, everything is fun. I mean, think about it. Theater is fun. That's why a lot of people get into it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights oftentimes when it gets close to production times.
Sure.
And there are a lot of egos and attitudes that clash and so forth. But when the end comes around, if I haven't had fun in a show, then something is wrong. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, definitely.
keep the audience in mind, but you want to have fun. You want to make it a good experience for everyone to walk away from, including the audience and the
Yeah.
actors and the crews.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
going back to the challenges, I mean that's really interesting to me because as an actor and a technician, you tend to fall into these not to get too ethereal, but you tend to fall into these traps of doing the same thing every time. As a set
It's
designer or light
comfortable.
designer,
Yeah,
all that.
it's comfortable, and you already kind of have an idea about how you can do that. So it might save a little time, it might save a little energy and a little work, but
Yeah,
oh well,
yeah, but
it's
like,
kind of throw something else in the mix too.
yeah,
And as a technician, I apologize to technicians everywhere for some of the ideas that I might pitch on occasion.
yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
It's up to the technicians to make them work. So,
Yeah, but I mean that's what I
between
guess what I'm.
you and Chad, who was the technician for quite a while, you've come up with some great ideas and some great sets and helped us execute those in that fashion too. And for that, directors and actors should be very grateful.
Well, thank you, thank you. But I mean, it's really interesting to think about how something as simple as just staging a play oddly can throw everybody out of their comfort zone and get better work. I think because it's not just that same thing that you've been doing or whatever. So
From
so
the
thank
time
you.
the audience enters the theater or the performance venue, when they go sit down, they start looking around because it's different. So
Yeah.
before the play even starts, you've got their attention.
Yeah. And I
So
mean, I think that's one of the bigger things about the Backstage series is the fact that, I mean, we still have people that come in and want to sit out in the main audience. They don't realize that they need to come up on
right.
stage and sit up there. So, I mean, it's challenging to the audience. It's challenging to us as actors and technicians and directors to make all this stuff work really well. And so, and that's one of the things I feel like is the strength of the Backstage series is getting people to see, these plays in a different light, and it's not just you're separated from the actors and everything by this distance. You're right up there with them.
Right up there with them, and that's hard for some actors to adapt to. At the same time, I think there are some audience members that have an issue or two with that don't like being that close. But I think once it gets up and rolling, I think everybody deals with it quite nicely.
Yeah.
One, I remember one instance we were doing Escanaba into Moonlight, which is one of the favorite plays. I didn't direct that play. Dave Johnson directed that. We've done it three times, and we've had great success with it. But I remember one performance of that, talking about being close to the audience. There was one scene, I was an actor in it, and I was sitting in a chair, and it was a scene that got very quiet. There's no sound going on except the actor. It's dark outside, it's nighttime, and he's just doing a little bit of exposition for the audience, kind of telling them what's going on and so forth. Well, we're in this scene. It's as quiet as the whole play gets. And this guy in the front row's phone starts to ring. And we all in theater know how that is. Well, you could see him kind of fumbling around trying to shut up. Well, I guess it quit ringing and he gave up on it. But about 2 or 3 more times it quit. And you could tell the guy was terribly embarrassed about it. And I remember commenting during the play, I had a gun in my lap. I stood up and I cocked the gun, and I said in a few more words, but basically I said, turn off the blank blank cell phone.
Yeah.
I have to do that in character. So that's a memorable moment
Yeah.
in theater. Again, that relates to having the audience right there. I mean, within touching distance almost.
Yeah.
So there are advantages to that, and I guess there may be a disadvantage on occasion to that as well.
Yeah.
But I do like the style in which the backstage productions are performed. I think it's a neat thing that we do, and I don't see many other theaters utilizing that concept, although I think they could, and it would work well for a lot
Yeah.
of theaters. Well, and since we don't have a separate space for a black box type theater, we do the best, and I think we do a good job of creating that black box
Yeah.
within our theater.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too, and I think that's one of the things that I enjoy the most about doing the Backstage series is creating that space and utilizing it in different ways. So, well, Steve, I think that's good for today. I appreciate you stopping by and talking about some of your experiences with the Backstage and showing us how it's grown. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And again, I'm glad that we are commenting and paying attention to the distancing thing. And I do have my sanitizer right here, so
Yeah,
I'll take
me
it.
too. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
No, just kidding. Just kidding. All you kids out there, don't try that. All right.
All right,
Thanks,
Steve.
Matt. Thanks for all you do. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Stay safe, healthy, and wash your hands. Well, that's it for our episode of Conversations from Backstage. One quick note, research was done on putting that pond on stage, and it was safe to put on the stage. It was not something that we did without knowing the variables involved, just so you know. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing. And if you have an idea of something that you would like to see on this show, let us know down in the comments. Thanks, guys. Be safe. Be healthy.